Okay, welcome everyone. My name's Eloisa Ramos, and we are here to study the text of A Course in Miracles. And Teresa and Connie are here with me studying this together. So thank you for joining us. We are continuing with Chapter 8, The Journey Back. And we finished the Gift of Freedom. And so now we're on Section 5, The Undivided Will of the Sonship. And I was just commenting to Teresa before we got started that it seems to be a continuation here on the will. The gift of freedom, of course, was talking about the will of God and how that is also our will. So we're going to continue with that theme here. Okay, paragraph 1. Can you be separated from your identification and be at peace? Dissociation is not a solution, it is a delusion. The delusional belief that truth will assail them, and they do not recognize it because they prefer the delusion. Oh, excuse me, let me read that again. The delusional believe that truth will assail them, and they do not recognize it because they prefer the delusion. Judging truth as something they do not want, they perceive their illusions, which block knowledge. Help them by offering them your unified mind on their behalf, as I am offering you mine on behalf of yours. Alone we can do nothing, but together our minds fuse into something whose power is far beyond the power of its separate parts. By not being separate, the mind of God is established in ours and as ours. This mind is invincible because it is undivided. Okay, so I think it's picking up from the previous section. So if you just start reading here, it's almost like what's this talking about? You know, it's so abstract. But in the previous section, we were talking about identification with Christ, basically, or Christ's mind, or the Son of God as the creation of God, and how the creation of God is part of the will of God, because that's how creation is created. It is an extension of the will of God. Okay. And therefore the question here is, can you be separated from your identification and be at peace? So if we identify and we recognize we are the will of God, okay, is it possible to be separate from that, from what we are, and be at peace? Well, we're not, because to be separate from that would mean that there would have to be a separate will, with a separate identification for what we believe we are, okay, which would mean that it would make conflict possible, at least in our thinking, okay? Because if I separate from you, and then I can think independently from you, and therefore what you believe, I don't have to believe. So we're not going to be, our beliefs are not going to be in alignment, and therefore we're going to argue, okay? Because we are going to identify with our beliefs. And by making those personal, by making them an identity, we're going to fight over them. Okay. Now we don't have to do that, but for the most part, that's what we do. That's what all those religious, you know, in the past, all the religious conflicts were about. It was about belief systems. So, and of course, dissociation is another word for separation. So number 2, dissociation is not the solution. Okay, it is a delusion. So a delusion means that it's not really possible to separate. from the will of God. It's not really separate. I cannot really separate myself from you just by believing things that are different than you. Okay. But I can think that I can do that, even if it's not true. That's what a delusion is. So the delusional believe that truth will assail them. Okay. And they do not recognize it because they prefer the delusion. Okay. So if I'm identified with my beliefs that are separate from yours, okay, the truth then will undo that. And therefore, if I am very attached to that identity, I'm not going to want the truth. I'm going to see that as a threat. And therefore, I'm not going to recognize it as the truth because I have closed off my mind to it because I prefer to be in my delusion. So 4, judging truth as something they do not want, they perceive their illusions, which block knowledge. Yes, so that's the thing with perception is we can see what we want to see, irregardless of the truth. Because we can believe whatever we want, irregardless of the truth. You know, we teach children to believe in Santa Claus, irregardless of the truth that there is no Santa Claus. And that's what we do as adults too. So, so it says, help them by offering them your unified mind on their behalf, as I am offering you mine on behalf of yours. Okay. So if I recognize that my mind is not separate from yours, then I can offer that to you on your behalf. Because even if you believe that you're separate, your mind is separate from mine because you have different beliefs, I can recognize that that's not true. Even if we have different beliefs, we're still one creation. Okay. So we can have different religions and still recognize that those are not, that they have nothing to do with the truth that we are all the same created by God. Okay, so 6. And in the I here that says, I am offering you mine on behalf of yours, that would be the Christ mind. So that's our higher mind. We have access to that higher mind as the Holy Spirit, the voice for God, who offers us that truth. And alone we can do nothing, but together our minds fused into something whose power is far beyond the power of its separate parts. So it's talking about us recognizing that we are the Christ mind and identifying ourselves as the Christ mind and therefore not separate from Christ, but the same mind. And so that power then is far beyond the power of its separate parts. And furthermore, by not being separate, the mind of God is established in ours and as ours. So when we believe we are separate, we are confusing our mind, which is the ego thought system, as an individual private mind, and believing that that's real, that's our real mind, and it's not. So the decision maker, as what we are, is the one that recognizes that it is one with all of creation, not being separate. And so recognizing that means that we let go of thinking, quote unquote, thinking with our little ego mind, and then just receive guidance, holy guidance. So, and that's when this mind is invincible because it is undivided, because the will is one. There's no separation. Okay, there's a lot there. Any questions with that? Okay, go ahead, Connie.
Okay, let's see. The undivided will of the sonship is the perfect creator, being holy in the likeness of God, whose will it is. You cannot be exempt from it if you are to understand what it is and what you are. By the belief that your will is separate from mine, you are exempting yourself from the will of God, which is yourself. Yet to heal is still to make whole. Therefore, to heal is to unite with those who are like you, because perceiving this likeness is to recognize the Father. If your perfection is in Him and only in Him, how can you know it without recognizing Him? The recognition of God is the recognition of yourself. There is no separation of God and His creation. You will realize this when you understand that there is no separation between your will and mine. Let the love of God shine upon you by your acceptance of me. My reality is yours and His. By joining your mind with mine, you are signifying your awareness that the will of God is one.
Do you want to say anything with that one, Connie? No? Okay. Okay, let's see. The undivided will is the perfect creator, being holy in the likeness of God. So this is talking about perfection. Our creation is perfect because God is perfect, and the sonship is like its creator. And we cannot be exempt from it, okay? But we can believe we can. Okay, so to believe something that is not true will make up a world of illusion, that where we can perceive separation as if that was real, and where we can have experiences as a separate self, as a body that has a quote unquote life, where it is the hero of its own drama, basically. Um, and all of that is just an illusion or a delusion, because we cannot be exempt from the will of God. All right. So that's why in other places in the course, it talks about how we continue to create in the mind of God, even when we are not aware of our creations. Because the mind is asleep and dreaming that it is a separate body in a world of separation. So number 3, by the belief that your will is separate from mine, you are exempting yourself from the will of God, which is yourself. Okay. So we're making up this world where we think that we have a separate will. Each person has a separate will and they follow that. And of course, that's not possible. It's not true. And that's why the mind is sick. And so number 4 says, yet to heal it. Yet to heal is to make it whole. So that's why it brings in the word healing here, because now the mind needs healing. Because it no longer recognizes that it is perfect and whole and has not separated itself in truth. So therefore, to heal is to unite with those who are like you. So the closest we can come in a world of perception is true perception, which is to see that we are all basically the same. So perceiving this likeness is to recognize the Father. So to recognize that we are all alike, we are all the same, it doesn't matter, what my preferences are, your preferences, or what, your values are and my values are. We're all the same. We're all created as eternal spirit. And by recognizing that, we recognize what our source is also as an eternal giver of life, which is what we call the Father. So the creator, source, whatever word you want to use. So if your perfection is in him and only in him, how can you know it without recognizing him? So that's the fundamental problem we have in the world. Most of our suffering, with relationships and sickness and poverty and all of that comes because we see ourselves as lacking, as imperfect, as incomplete, as unworthy of love, as abandoned, as lonely, as, a separate body ego. And therefore, we see ourselves as not in God. And by seeing ourselves that way, we block out the awareness of our perfection in God. So the recognition of God is the recognition of yourself, because in truth, we are created in God's likeness. So there is no separation of God and his creations. That's impossible, because that's what creation is. It's extension, it's sharing. And you will realize this when you understand that there is no separation between your will and mine. So as soon as we can recognize that in truth, it's not possible to have a separate will of our own, as much as we want to be special, or as much as we want to believe that we are in control of our life, it's not true. So let the love of God shine upon you by your acceptance of me. So that would be me as a brother in Christ, as Christ. So my reality is yours and his, with a capital H, and God. So the truth of our reality is the same. And when we don't recognize that sameness, we make believe we are something that is not real. An ego, a body, a caricature, I don't know, the roles we play, those kind of things. We make up a separate identity. 12, by joining your mind with mine, you are signifying your awareness that the will of God is one. So, yes, so the Christ mind is this joining of your mind with mine as brothers, as all the same children. And in that, we recognize that there is no separate will. There's only one will, and it is God's, and we share in that. Okay. Number 3.
God's oneness and ours are not separate, because his oneness encompasses ours. To join with me is to restore his power to you, because we are sharing it. I offer you only the recognition of his power in you, but in that lies all truth. As we unite with him. Glory be to the union of God and his holy sons. All glory lies in them because they are united. The miracles we do bear witness to the will of the Father for his Son, and to our joy in uniting with his will for us.
Mm-hmm. Anything there, Teresa?
It just sounds like a very joyful place to be.
Yeah. Yes. And remember, this is a Course in Miracles. So line
Yes.
7 says that the miracles we do bear witness to the will of the Father for his Son. and to our joy in uniting with his will for us. So the miracles are really just extending the will of God. And it's the healing of the mind, because it's the healing of the one problem, which is separation. And so it brings the mind back to the recognition of the truth that we cannot be separate, and that we cannot be anything that we think we are, that is a separate self, but that we are all part of that, of the glory of God, that he shares with us. Um, so you could say that the miracles bear witness to that reality. Yes, and that power, number 3, I offer you only the recognition of his power in you, but in that lies all truth. So the power to perform miracles is not, we can't take ownership of that. The ego will want to take ownership and credit for that. But all power comes from God. It is the will of God, and it is loving. It is what love is. So that's where the extension of love comes in, and where the decision to forgive comes in, because that's where the miracle shows up, is in that change in mind to choose love, to choose God, to choose the miracle rather than the grievance. So, and remember that in the forgiveness, we are recognizing that our mind is not separate from my brother's. And that's why we let go of the judgment that my brother did this to me, because we recognize that all the power is in my mind. And so everything that shows up in my life comes with my because I want it. Basically, I'm asking for it. So yeah, so we cannot be victims. We cannot be powerless, in truth. Okay, let's see, number 4. My turn. Okay, when you unite with me, you are uniting without the ego, because I have renounced the ego in myself and therefore cannot unite with yours. Our union is therefore the way to renounce the ego in you. The truth in both of us is beyond the ego. Our success in transcending the ego is guaranteed by God, and I share his confidence for both of us and all of us. I bring God's peace back to all his children because I receive it of him for us all. Nothing can prevail against our united wills, because nothing can prevail against God's. Okay, so, we all struggle. We all, have this ego showing up in various ways. But basically Christ, Jesus Christ has accomplished that, of letting that go, that separate identity. And when we unite our will with our brother, recognize that we are one creation, we are doing that without the ego, because we're letting go of that identification to be separate. And therefore, let's see, I have renounced the ego in myself and therefore cannot unite it with yours. Yes. So a lot of times when we get together with others, we end up relating to each other as egos. But when we make this journey and, and want to see it differently, want to experience peace, and want to let go of fear, and want to heal the mind, then we are open to the higher mind, which is the Christ mind. And that's where this union is, with what Jesus Christ has already accomplished, which is to let go of the ego. And that is there for us because it's already been accomplished. So let's see. And number 4, our success is in transcending the ego is guaranteed by God. So it's just a matter of time. Everyone's going to transcend the ego. And I share this confidence for both of us and all of us, because I know sometimes it's like seems impossible to transcend the ego. But this is very reassuring here. It's saying, no, it's yes. Trust me. It's the will of God, and that's it. It's done. You just don't think it's happened already, but it has. And so this brings the peace of God back to his children, because Christ received it of him for all of us. Yep. And so nothing can prevail against our united will because nothing can prevail against God. So again, it's not confusing the levels. It's putting the levels in the right order where the will of God is all powerful and there is nothing that has greater power in truth. We can believe otherwise, but that does not change the truth. That just becomes a delusion in our own mind that we think is separate from God's. Okay, number 5.
Would you know the will of God for you? Ask it of me, who know it for you, and you will find it. I will deny you nothing as God denies me nothing. Ours is simply the journey back to God, who is our home. Whenever fear intrudes anywhere along the road to peace, it is because the ego has attempted to join the journey with us and cannot do so. Sensing defeat and angered by it, the ego regards itself as rejected and becomes retaliative. You are invulnerable to its retaliation because I am with you. On this journey, you have chosen me as your companion instead of the ego. Do not attempt to hold on to both, or you will try to go in different directions and will lose the way.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so so it's this journey. Let's see. It's interesting. Would you know the will of God for you? Ask it of me who know it for you, and you will find it. So we can ask our right mind, Christ's mind, to tell us what the will of God is for us. Um, and what I'm kind of tuning into that is if I do that, then I will find certainty, you know, and a deep inner peace that would pass all understanding. So number 3, I will deny you nothing as God denies me nothing. So ours is simply the journey back to God, who is our home. Yes, and so a lot of times, we feel like we're not at home. And, we feel like we don't fit in, or we feel like, I'm weird. I'm like came from another planet or something. And I think it's all really this vague recognition that this is not our home, that God is our home. But we have a problem identifying the kind of the origin of that let's see, what is that? That vague recognition that this is not our home. Yeah. Whenever fear intrudes anywhere along the road to peace, it's because the ego has attempted to join the journey and cannot do so. So I think that once we decide to seek the truth, okay, where is my real home? Who am I really? Okay. Where do I really belong? What is the truth? That's kind of the starting of our journey. And the fear is, the ego is definitely going to want to come along. Okay. And it's going to want to take control, and it's going to want to, do it my way. I can get you there faster or things, something like that. But it cannot do so. And the ego regards itself as rejected and becomes retaliative. Okay. And I think a lot of times we can actually become afraid of our own ego. Once we begin to disidentify from it, we begin to see that it is not us. We can actually become afraid of it. But C7 says that you are invulnerable to its retaliation because I am with you. So it's very important to remember to not be afraid of the ego. That's something that Ken Wapnick emphasizes, because we would be then afraid of our own mind, afraid of our own fearful thoughts. And, when I've worked with children who, feel like there's a scary thought in my mind and I can't control it. And, they get really scared because they feel powerless. But that's what it's saying here, is that that those thoughts are not, they're not real. So it's in that part of the journey where we're letting go of believing that the ego is real, that it can kind of go back and forth, and we can get scared of it. But as long as we remember that we're not alone, that God is always with me. My higher mind, Christ's mind, is always with me. There's strength there that we can draw upon. So on this journey, you have chosen me as your companion instead of the ego. So yes, so at some point we make that decision to no longer, to no longer, go along with the ego. And once we do that, the ego does sense that it is being rejected. That's how it interprets it. And it throws a fit. It can throw a little, temper tantrum. And but um but it says, do not attempt to hold on to both. You will try to go in different directions and will lose the way. And so we can get confused and kind of stay confused for a while there, because we are trying to hold on to both. A lot of times, we make the ego into this baby of ours. Our needs become, our baby, and we have to, we feel obligated to our needs, or we feel, what's the other word? Let's see. Or there's some drivers, that are associated maybe with ambition. Oh, you have so much to accomplish here. You have, you know, you have so much potential, don't let go of that, go this way. So it will definitely try to take over on this journey here. Let's see, anything there? Any questions? Okay. All right. So 6, is that your turn, Teresa?
The
Okay.
ego's way is not mine, but it is also not yours. The Holy Spirit has one direction for all minds, and the one he taught me is yours. Let us not lose sight of his direction through illusions, for only illusions of another direction can obscure the one for which God's voice speaks in all of us. Never accord the ego the power to interfere with the journey. It has none, because the journey is the way to what is true. Leave all illusions behind and reach beyond all attempts of the ego to hold you back. I go before you because I am beyond the ego. Reach, therefore, for my hand because you want to transcend the ego. My strength will never be wanting, and if you choose to share it, you will do so. I give it willingly and gladly because I need you as much as you need me. Basically, Jesus is just saying, don't let the ego interfere with your journey to God.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that he's there to provide us with strength to do so.
That's right. So when you find yourself being tempted with specialness, with the desire for specialness, you want to recognize that that's the ego interfering with your spiritual journey because it's trying to derail you and take you off into the world to pursue worldly endeavors for specialness. um, and and it really has no power other than the power that we give it by believing in it, by believing that it really has something better to offer us, or by valuing what it seems to offer us. Let's see. And it always talks about how we're not on this journey alone. Number 8, reach therefore from my hand because you want to transcend the ego. And so that is always within us. That strength is available from our Christ mind. That's Jesus who walks with us. So it's not a lonely journey. Let's see. It can appear that way because other people around us may look at us as strange or weird or like, like, yeah, there's something really like, you don't, let's see. It's like, it's almost like, well, you're not like everybody else. There's something weird about you. There's something wrong with you. Because, you're not worried, you're not stressed out, about your son like you should be. What kind of mother are you? Or something like that, but yeah, well, if I'm in a place of trust, I don't need to be stressed out. I don't need to worry. I can just trust that everything's going to be okay and that it's for my highest good. And even when things show up that seem to be, difficult, there's always a lesson there. I always look for that lesson that it has for me so that I can see that there is good, that it is bringing me something good in terms of my journey, because it's helping me on this journey to release the errors in my mind. And therefore, I don't have to keep repeating those difficult experiences. Yeah. So, okay. Yes, and so we need our brother just as much as our brother needs us. I give it willingly and gladly because I need you as much as you need me. So the unification of the mind is a power that will change the world because that's what the world is. It's a reflection of that mind. And therefore we want to give our mind, we want to put our mind at the service of the Holy Spirit and not give the ego power to interfere with that journey towards the truth. So, okay. let's see. That's the end of the section, the undivided will. The next one is the treasure of God. Okay, so we're going to stop here for now. All right. Thank you. And until next time.